All right. Back again, Dilly Boy, with another one. You know what I'm saying? As my brethren last said, it's gonna be a somber one. Not really. We're not gonna be somber, but we definitely gonna talk about the Charlie Kirk situation. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be a Charlie Kirk video. Y'all know, just what it was 2 days ago. Uh, Charlie Kirk got shot in the neck. Gruesome footage. You know what I'm saying? Bust through, gone through, yo, blood, all that graphic stuff. It was horrible. It was on camera. It was live. It was being recorded by many people. It was at a open forum. It was at a university in the US of A. Apparently, the champions of freedom and liberty and free speech and all this type of stuff. Yeah, it was a somber moment still for sure, as my dog would say. But you know, bruh, I mean, let me just say this to start with, bro. When someone showed me what happened, and I saw the thing, and I saw I seen the full shot. I seen the whole thing happen, and then I looked at the name and I saw Charlie Kirk. I was like, there was like a gasp, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh no. And I'm a dude that, like, I lost a brother to gun violence a while back. It was incredible shock for my family. And I think Charlie Kirk was talking about gun violence at the same time this happened. And funnily enough, I believe he was answering the question that somebody posed to him about, like the relation between transgenderism and gun violence and things like that. We're going to talk about all that a little later. But, you know, Charlie Kirk got hit at the same time, and like I felt like a little gasp inside of me, and I was like, "What?" But as I was exploring this thought, I was like, "Why is it that Daily Boy feels that way necessarily? What is the thing?" And I think it's something bigger than just. And Charlie Kirk was a big deal, but I think this is something even grander than that, and I think it's also something that we've been touting for a while, something that we've been saying for a while, something that we knew could happen and would happen. Does it seem surprising to anyone that this did happen? I mean, it is a shock, right? But they clipped Donald Trump's ear earlier in the year. You know what I mean? So, in light of this, this is a Christian apologetic slash I don't know, just like a channel where we talk about religion, and we talk about the things pertaining to religion, including history and philosophy and things like that. But we've talked about politics before here. The worlds intersect. I always say that your worldview will sort of guide your the way you think, your philosophy, and then that will guide your policies. And that's what politics is. It's supposed to be based on policies. Although I must say, a lot of times political politically minded people are just like tribal, bro. Like, they're not really looking at policies and talking about policies or anything like that. A lot of times they're not very specific. You always hear people, "Oh, this guy's a liar. And they never tells you what they never tell you what the man was lying about. So a lot of times you find that a lot of people are not really even educated on what they're talking about. They're just conditioned to hate someone. I couldn't tell you how many times I sat next to someone that said something so like horrible about Donald Trump or something like that. And like, up to today, bruh, I'm gonna tell you a story. Went to work today, and a Jamaican man came to my truck. He's just like, "Yo, fam, like, I need to go a certain place." And I'm like, "Yo, honestly," well, we figured out he knew I was going to the garbage dump because I was loading garbage into the truck. And so he was going in that direction. He asked me for a ride. He jumped in my whip. I took him there. You know what I'm saying? And I even drove him to where he had to go. But in the meantime, the same time, he's just like, "Man, this Donald Trump dude." And he was saying something, right? And I basically, I chimed in and I said a one, two things, and he shifted his position right away in the conversation. Now, I'm not. I take it as he wasn't educated on what he was talking about, and it could be that someone might say, "Oh well, maybe he's just acquiescing. You're giving him a ride, and so he's just." But I think he agreed with a lot of the stuff that was said. So vast majority of people not very educated on what they're talking about. Anyways, this is a problem in general with like a lot of people. I mean, not everybody's built to be engaged in the same exact things, and so you've got that happening across the globe as well, right? Because you've got, and you don't expect everybody to be a theologian. You don't expect everybody to be heavily involved in all these things. People have lives, they're running around for this. So like the general population is not too versed. And if you would need to have people, okay, I'm gonna answer that later. But you would need to have people of various that are like engaged in this world to be able to have these conversations and discussions. But let's talk about Charlie Kirk. First of all, like some of y'all might say, who is Charlie Kirk? We don't know, right? And I just wanted to kind of give you guys sort of like, enough background to know what's going on anyways, right? Charlie Kirk is a political figure essentially, but he's also kind of a Christian apologetics figure. So he wears his Christianity on his sleeves. He speaks from a Christian perspective. He advocates for Christianity a lot, but he's a public speaker. He got into this very young. He never went to college. He basically sort of left from high school. He was very proficient at debating, and then he started his own sort of company. Ultimately, this led into a movement that grew. I believe it's called Turning Point USA, and this is where his main shtick is going around from college campuses to college campuses, talking to college and university youths. And let me be quite frank here. The college and university youths are primarily, and there's a little bit of a background to this. You know what I'm saying? There's a principality behind this, but there is some ruling figures that I believe ultimately is led by Satan at the top. Sometimes people don't know that they're led by Satan. They are kind of like, maybe they're doing it for money, maybe they're doing it for whatever goals, farthering whatever goals they're trying to farther. And, they're taking donations from various people and whatnot. But these people are making the curriculum and whatnot. Whatever is going on in the university, it seems to be a place. Universities and colleges seems to be places that pump out. They're like factories. It's like they make and manufacture left wing political ideologies and Marxism and anarchism and all different isms, socialism and communism and versus capitalism and versus democracy and things like that. But it seems like a lot of these college campuses is just full with people who totally rock with this other side. Let's call it the other side. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to lump everybody in to two different categories. For the sake of this discussion, for the sake of this video, I'm going to lump everybody into two categories. So you got this guy going around to these colleges and university that are well known primarily to be totally the antithesis of what he's preaching. So he's going into sort of the lion's den here. You know what I'm saying? He's bravely and boldly trotting into the den where everybody is. And, this is like going to have discussions at the mosque with the Muslims. You know what I'm saying? This is like going to, I don't know, into Israel, into certain parts of Israel where there's very traditional Jews and trying to preach the gospel. It is kind of a scary thing that he did, but he did it very, very well. I'm going to be quite honest and frank, and I don't mind, you know what I'm saying? I don't mind it. And I mean, if you differ with me, that's cool, bro. Like, if you think something else, that's cool. We could have a discussion. You could just block me. I don't mind. But, you know, it's, it's, and let me just be frank. Like, I understand that people have different views. And this is what I liked about Charlie Kirk in particular, because he's willing to go and have hard conversations with people who disagree with him. You know what I mean? And he's willing to stand on business and tell them and be 10 toes down. A lot of people are fake, bro. A lot of people are like maybe Unks in the car was being fake with me. Maybe he didn't want to tell me. I doubt it. I think he actually, like I was there for the conversation, but you could say maybe he was. But there are people like that. They won't want to tell you certain things. They won't want to tell you certain views. We got a dude named Mamdani or something like that running for mayor in the States, and the sort of political ideology that he's running with jives directly and opposed to his Islamic beliefs, and he claims to be both a Muslim and representing for LGBT and all this other stuff. It really doesn't make sense. One, he's lying about something in this case. It's just like, you either not Muslim or not, like, at least a proper Muslim, or you're not actually rocking with these people that you're talking about. And there's a lot of people that are like that. Charlie Kirk, definitely not a dude like that. He was definitely a little bit, and respect people who are willing to tell you what they believe and stand on business and like have open discussions with you and be calm about it. You know what I mean? A little passion is okay. I respect it. I like it. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I'm saying we should keep it. We should keep it to the discussions. We should be able to articulate our points. We should be able to have a discussion. We should be able to change our perspective if we're challenged in a certain way. We should be able to be presented with new information and then go back and wrestle through that information and figure out what we believe on certain things, right? And so, Charlie Kirk was doing this. He was effective at it. He was good at it. And he really sort of started shifting the sort of spectrum that he was involved in, because coming into that environment, I think he actually put a dent into it. I think it was very different climate. If you think about it as the Reds and the Blues or the left and the right, whatever, Charlie Kirk's like legacy of what he was doing, his work was, and I think that's probably, I don't know if that's why he named it Turning Point USA, because it was like a contact point for where people were spinning. And even like, and I'm gonna tell you something about debates. Debates are often more for the audience listening than for the people engaged in the debates. The people that come to the debate, maybe they got pride or something. Maybe they want to prove something. Maybe that might be the case. But oftentimes they're trying to influence the people that are listening. And so a lot of times when you're talking to someone in a debate one-on-one, you're not trying to like necessarily engage with that person. You're engaging with the audience as a whole. And so Charlie Kirk's work, his body of work, was affecting the audience, and we were seeing a shift in the mind state of the US in general. Let me lay out the two main camps and the differences, the main issues that are kind of separating us. There's a lot of other issues. I'll say the main difference is one side is godless and another side has like some sort of like, God or some kind of moral like grounding for their beliefs. And the other side is kind of like mostly godless kind of individuals. These are people that believe that we're all here by random accident chance. It's really not. There is really no truth. It's like all your truth versus anyone's truth, and like whatever's true for you could be true for you, and whatever's true for someone else could be true for someone else. So there's no actual truth. And when you get into discussions with them, even on morality, and you can actually lay out the most morally reprehensible behavior, and at the end of the day, they have to admit that it's not inherently morally reprehensible. They might admit that it's based on some societal norms or something like that we see that as evil. but it's not actually grounded in any real truth, that there is no moral truth, right? That it's just a matter of human opinions. And so we formulated that murdering people is wrong because it's like not congruent to human flourishing or something like that. And so, they see it as wrong, but it's not actually grounded in anything. Like, it's not actually wrong. So it's just your opinion. Versus, so, if there is a society that finds value in murdering people, then in that case, they would have to like agree that in that situation, you know, who are we to say that they're wrong, type of thing, right? And so you got the people who are godless totally, and you got people who stand on some sort of moral footing in general, right? In general, give or take, right? The main issues that separate us is, one of the number one ones is abortions. And so we got like what some people will refer to as female reproductive rights. And so Charlie Kirk was a dude that was standing on business when it came to the fact that, you know, a human life is a human life, even from in the womb. And he was about protecting that human's life. People will say, well, there's arbitrary standards to where, is it at viability? Is it at where the baby can survive outside of the womb? Is it a certain amount of weeks or whatever? But the lines are weird. And so you got the people on the left that ultimately support abortions. They support, what we would call as killing babies, you know what I'm saying? And they wouldn't see it as a baby, but they would justify it under cases of what they call grape, you know what I mean? And they would justify it under other cases, but for the vast majority of it, they're really advocating for anyone to have an abortion for any reason that they can. Charlie Kirk stood on business against that. He wasn't about that life. He was really trying to protect the babies from the womb. And, of course, in the case of, grape or something like that, we would want to put in harsh punishments against those people and whatnot. So we can prevent those things from happening, but we don't do a morally even more evil or another morally reprehensible thing by then intervening by trying to kill the baby or sacrificing the life. Now that's a discussion on when you believe a human life becomes a human life. We believe that it becomes a human at conception, and so in that case, we would want to protect babies from being killed from even inside the womb from the moment of conception. I would say, the measures that you take ought to be before that. And so, but it's not about Daily Boy and his views. You want to sort of, but, you want to be responsible with who you choose to sleep with. In our case as Christians, we believe that you get into a committed, loving relationship, not only with God first, but then once you have those things worked out, those prerequisites, you're able to be a man who's able to guide a family or, live a certain way. Then you're able to engage in this act with a person once you're in a committed relationship with, where when a human life comes from that situation, then, and that's ideally. Now, outside of that, things happen, it gets messy, and then you got to deal with it. And there's many, many success stories and horror stories on both sides of the aisle here. So again, we're not talking about that. Abortion is one of the main issues that you could see someone wanting to pop my boy out for. You know what I'm saying? Because it is one of those things that get people irate. I know some of y'all must be irate watching Daily Boy talk about it. Yeah, it is what it is, bro. Like, I'm going to get to the fact that I understand y'all too. You know what I mean? In a little bit. Another issue is the whole LGBT, transgenderism, and all that type of stuff. This guy banged out heavily against the whole LGBT movement and like the transgenderism movement. So on one side of the aisle, again, you got the right and the left. you got the right, which is what Charlie Kirk is on, or conservatism, which generally rocks with an idea that, of traditional marriages, of it being between an adult man and an adult woman, and being a relationship that's congruent with producing and then sustaining the life of a child in the most, giving that that child the opportunity to grow up in the most congruent environment for human flourishing, which is usually in a household where the mother and the father is present, and both biological parents usually is the better thing in this case. And of course, there's anomalies to these things, but this is one of the positions that he was advocating for, is this traditional family view. Whereas, on the left, you've got people saying, man, well, love is love, and like, you can marry whoever, and like it's all innocent, and it's all, you know. Let me just talk about this a little bit. When I grew up in Guyana, people really did persecute gay people, man. It was bad. I mean, there is a context in which you can there's some nuances here. I'm not justifying persecuting people, but there was some, like, where I grew up, people that were rocking with this homosexuality thing. They were particularly devious. Like, it was always, they were predatorial. Like, a lot of times they were attacking children and, like, young boys, like all kind of stuff that was happening every time. And there was a whole closeted thing, weird thing going on. And then when it started popping off and getting a little more popular, the people really rocked against it and they pushed against it. And it did create a situation in which people were persecuting them. And I don't agree with that at all. You know what I'm saying? I agree with freedom of speech. I agree with the fact that you should be able to say your opinion and, kind of run with this, but not be persecuted for for whatever you believe and whatever you act out in your personal life, as long as it's not, necessarily directly harming other people. So I advocate for you to be able to, if you believe homosexuality is a sin, and it's not congruent to you and flourishing or something like that, and you think that, like, someone who's engaging in this is potentially engaging in something that is harmful to them ultimately, and you believe that there are other psychological markers, and you want to explore that and have a conversation with them, I advocate for your position to have that conversation, not to harass them or to commit acts of violence against them, or to whatever, even like throwing something at people that can be seen as assault and whatnot. So I don't believe anyone should be harassed for their opinion, my opinion, their opinion, and whatnot. But I do believe that you should be able to say what you think you want to say, or whatever you think is right in that situation, and you guys should be able to have that discussion openly and honestly, and you should be able to advocate for your position. However, and this is how you do it. You work with people, and you advocate your position up against and just oppose, and like iron it out, and a lot of times you land in a better place as a society as a whole. You know what I mean? Now, once you start to shut down discussions, and you start to shut people down, and you start to not allow people to talk, and you start to like threaten and like commit acts of violence against people, or limit them from saying certain things on social media and things like that. I'm not talking about anything that's calling for domestic terrorism or active violence. I'm talking about, just like like labeling things as false information or something like that, and just like taking down people's posts. And like we've seen a lot of that during COVID and those type of things, which, by the way, a lot of what was promoted as false information during COVID turned out to actually be, correct. And so, they've had to walk back a few of those things. So that's one of the reasons I advocate for free speech on this issue. But given the fact that these people were persecuted in the way that they were, there was a shift in our culture, and that shift shift ended up being to the extreme other end. And so, like, in our generation coming up, people started like saying, "Hey man, what's happening here is wrong. Let's change this." I remember the Jamaican music was very homophobic growing up. You know what I'm saying? Everybody knows "Boom Bye Bye." Everybody knows, "Step on them, stand up on." You know what I mean? All these tunes that they used to bump back in the days, and some of it was wild because "Boom Bye Bye" was calling for the death of people who were gay, right? Which is just plain wrong. Like, we could say that, right? However, this shift ended up leading to something we seen as the push was really deep for like the tolerance. Originally, it was just tolerance. They were saying, "Hey man, just tolerate us. We want to live as a regular part of society as well," and you know there was tolerance there. And then the shift ended up being, okay, we don't even just want tolerance, we want acceptance. And then it became from, we don't even want just acceptance now, we want you to promote, like, actively be, but you gotta wear the badge, you gotta post it up on your thing, you gotta, like, you know what I'm saying, you gotta advocate for a position. And so, people are starting to get a little jaded now. It's led to us being totally off hinge. We've gone off our rockers. We've gone way too far with it. Transing children and, gender mutilation surgeries for kids, and men can get pregnant, and just like totally loss of reality. We've got men going into women's prison and raping and, like, you know what I'm saying? Violating women and impregnating women in the prison. And when you look at the mans, it's some big burly mans. It's not like no, you know what I'm saying? But any case, we've gone so far that people are starting to wake up. Now, ratings to my Gen Z people, my youngins out there. I know none of y'all watch Daily Boys program, probably save my daughter or something. But at the same time, the Gen Zs are going hard now. The shift is starting to happen in the culture, and Charlie Kirk was a major part of this shift in the zeitgeist. You know what I'm saying? I love that word. I don't even know if I'm using it correct sometimes. I won't lie. But, the spear has been starting to flip. And there's more and more people waking up and going, okay, yeah, like, this is an overcorrection. We shouldn't persecute gay people or anything, but we don't need to advocate it in all of our schools. We don't need to push children into this way. We don't need this all over our social media. You don't need to have to bake a cake for if you religious beliefs that, you know what I'm saying? And so we're starting to gain a little momentum where people are starting to get a more balanced perspective, and they're starting to, like, find the line. Now, a lot of what has been happening in these communities is a conversation that's been shut down over whether there is a certain level of promiscuity there. And so you see this at these parades and these things where men are exposing it and they're going wild and they're doing all kind of stuff in front of kids that are just inappropriate. And you're seeing it with the amount of partners people are having, and you know what I'm saying? And so there is a little level of perversion that is causing, some detriments within some of these communities as well. And a lot of times, a lot of this stuff, when you do check it out, not every case, but a lot of the times, the ones that I've encountered and talked to for enough time, you'll find out there's trauma, you'll find out there's hurt, you'll find out there's mental health issues, there's like all kinds of things now. People have gone too spirited and animal and all, you know what I'm saying? They gone wild, fam. They're just like, off the rock. And so now we've got an epidemic of things like this happening, violence that's being perpetrated by people who seem unstable, seem to be dealing with mental health issues. And then on top of that, they've got this layer of thinking that this person is against me, they're on the other side, they're fighting, you know what I'm saying? And so, you're seeing shootings after shootings after shootings after shootings with people who either are or identify as trans or have like some kind of trans ideology. So in the Charlie Kirk situation, right as of now that I'm speaking and this stuff is unfolding right now, it seems to be something akin to that in particular. So I spent a little bit more time on that one, but there's other things. Charlie Kirk is against Islamization of the West. And so Islam is another thing that he speaks out against. And he's not like super, into the topic, but it is one of the things that he has combated. And it is one of those things that gets you in hot water. No doubt there are some Mozzies out there that will do you dirty for like speaking on their prophet or speaking on their Quran or speaking on, and so this is a reality. This is something that we've been staring down the pipeline for a while, and then the way that it manifested in Charlie Kirk's death is pretty shocking and horrific and crazy, essentially. And so, you've got all these different issues. There's more issues. Charlie Kirk is on that is right wing political talking points, and so you got the left and the right here at odds with these type of rhetoric. The left is seen as very into some wokeism thing and into like some kind of like I don't know, like new it sometimes begins to get new agey. It begins to get like sometimes they're not necessarily, a lot of the people on the left are not necessarily religiously inclined, but they identify as spiritual or something like that. Sometimes a lot of them are atheist minded, but and there are atheists and people who identify as spiritual and other things on the right as well. Again, we're just sort of generalizing. I'm just trying to paint the picture of the world that we're talking about here. It's two different worlds, the left and the right. And on the left there is also the issues surrounding Palestine and Israel. Another super controversial issue that my dog could have got popped out for again. You know what I'm saying? And so there's a whole plethora of reasons as to why somebody would want to kill Charlie Kirk, and for why it would have happened. We're starting to figure out which one that was already. And it could be a jumble. It could be a ball of these things. A lot of times they all go together. You know what I'm saying? You'll see them hand in hand all together. You know what I mean? So it seems like the Christian right wingers and like, you know what I mean? It's like the conservatives over on this side, and then for the general part you'll see the like the crazy haired like piercing tattooed like what I mean dudes on the other side. I hate to paint that picture, but for real that be what it looked like. You know what I mean? Like I got you. Sometimes you see a leftist. Like I'll be driving, you look over, you're like, yeah, she's on the left. You know what I mean? You could tell. Stereotypes are not right necessarily all the time, but stereotypes come from somewhere. They stem from somewhere. They're true in a sense. You know what I mean? Stereotypes have a truth behind them that like leads you to like be able to understand. And it's fine, right? Like we all like. I mean, I'm sure man see me and they're like, "Yo, Dale looks like he's from the hood." Let me see what else I got for you guys here. Christianity. I already mentioned that. He stand on business when it came to Christianity. He stood on business when it came to Israel. He stood on business when it came to the borders and things like that. He stood on business. His kindness, man. I want to talk about that for a second. Even though he was debating all these people and going to these college campuses and talking to people directly, and like he always had this level of kindness about him, man. Like he's always like, oh, sorry, we couldn't agree on this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I guess we just see we can't see eye to eye on this issue. Thank you for your question. Like, I'm gonna take another question. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, he's still like, even though these are such polarizing topics that he's discussing with people, and they're getting into the weeds and sometimes getting a bit passionate about it, he always sort of exercised this sort of kindness, this sort of like, I don't know, humility and like a gentleness about him. It's a unique tack to have, because having a discussion where you're being direct with someone and still being able to be, sort of like it's hard to explain. You would have to like be watching his videos and like seeing what I'm saying, but there's a kindness that he has that he exuberated. You see him a lot of B-rolls with him and his friends and whatnot hanging out, and the sort of personality that he had. And you know what I'm saying? Just wanted to highlight that his effectiveness. I already highlighted that one. He was obviously very effective and proficient at what he did. Nobody would have wanted to take him out. Let me make this point right quick. If you have a position and people want to just attack you for your position, like physically to stop you, usually that means they can't engage with the point. That means they can't refute you. That means, because let me show you something. When people are saying stupidness, they just look stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like, you will see them online. They'll go on like a idiot, and you could just expose them as a idiot. You're like, yo, this man a idiot, Bridget, watch him. You know what I'm saying? So it's very easy for you to refute someone or diminish their, and it's a lot of times their work won't even get traction without there being something that's giving them that traction. And that's something you need to admit at certain times. You know what I mean? That for real, there's attraction that comes with people who sort of blow up off of something, right? And you gotta for trying to figure out what that niche is. So you got the effectiveness. He was super, super effective at what he did, and this is one of the reasons people wanted to shut him down. And a lot of times people weren't able to sort of get the best on him. I'm not gonna say no one's ever bested him in a conversation, but he is definitely one of those dudes that's like, very articulate, very intelligent, very, you know what I'm saying, quick-witted, and he's able to sort of hold the conversation and hold the debate and hold the discussion, and he's able to like fact check you on the spot and bring up facts and like counterfactuals and engage in conversations, and just a really sharp, double-edged sword this man was, you know what I'm saying, for the work that he was doing in this social and political religious zeitgeist. Yo, don't kill me. Anyways, the finesse, I mentioned that already. He had a certain finesse with how he handled situations and how he, like, when he knew when to raise what and when not to raise what, where to go with the conversation and how to direct. He had a certain finesse as well that's pretty incredible. It's a marker of like Charlie Kirk himself. Why did they kill him? That's another point that I wanted to bring up. And it's a thing that we really don't know yet for sure. But, given what he does and given the sort of like threats and the things that are around this, you can assume that it's probably for one of his views. It was probably because of how effective he was in changing the narrative and in like helping to farther the rights goals or conservative values, and not only like in the political arena itself, but in the minds of the young people that he was influencing and talking with, right? And so it could have been that. Now, I wanted to talk about something that's a little bit more reachy, but it's not so reachy in a sense, right? There are some countries that are really mad at the US right now, as you guys can imagine, and, aside from the countries, there's people in the US. The US is so divided, and so I could see someone, trying to push an agenda here and trying to like, and sometimes this stuff is in the background happening. I don't put nothing past nothing, you know what I'm saying? When you do find out some guy's the fall guy and this was all like a plan from I'm going to drop a name here, But I'm not saying this happened. Obviously, given light of what we know now, it seems like it's very unlikely. But you could see like Qatar or like, Iran or some other enemy, Russia or something like that, like trying to, assassinate a character in the U.S. And I know that feels like it's far reachy, but when you think about what has happened in Qatar recently with Israel taking out some targets in Qatar, and it seems they categorize that sometimes as a strike on Qatar, whereas you know I'm not here to advocate whether what was right or what was wrong. I don't even really know the answers to some of these things sometimes, but I'm gonna say that I can see that green lighting a U.S. assassination, where someone tries to stir up trouble for the country. And so there is another paradigm in which maybe a part of like the whole demonic satanic agenda is to divide us farther. Can you imagine, bro? Imagine running out to battle. Imagine homies come to the block to battle against you, drop down in your country, running around. Do, 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 do. Now you're battling. Do, do, do. You're trying to save your people as well. You're running through the city. You're running with your homeboys. They're supposed to be behind you, helping you, covering your back. I'm reloading. Hold on. Like you're reloading. They're covering fire for you. But your homies behind you are secretly your enemy, secretly siding with the dudes that just came to take over your country, dog. And so America is one of those places, bro. And it's not even like foreigners or something like that. Now you got the left, bro. When this thing happened, there's bare people out here now that are like, yo, celebrating. And let me just pull back a little bit. Let me just say that a lot of the left are not rocking with this. They're not okay with it. You know what I'm saying? They're not. And I've seen it, bro. Ratings to my dog, Sneeko. Ratings to, some of the mans that came out and took a lot of flack for just not rocking with this. And they're supposed to be people that are supposed to be like, hating this guy according to the sort of dichotomies that I set out in this video, right? And so, a lot of the left is condemning this. They're not with it. They're not rocking with it. They don't want it. You know what I'm saying? And they don't, let me just say this too. Anyhow, you agree with the point, and intellectually you're agreeing with the point that someone should die for their opinions on something, automatically you just kind of killed yourself, because now you've just greenlighted yourself to be killed for your opinions, like just psychologically. Not, I don't mean someone should go, like, I'm not saying anyone should go and kill you. Obviously, I'm not advocating for that at all. But I'm saying by your own intellectual, by your own way of rationalizing, you're also advocating for your own like murder, essentially, right? So you don't want to do that. You don't want to open up that window for your own beliefs to have you get murked for something that you believe. Like that's just wild, reckless, and silly and dumb, stupid, idiotic. You know what I mean? All the other, so I don't know, similes or synonyms. I don't know. Really, boy, that can't talk right now. Anyway, so what point was I even on, bruh? I was on. Anyways, man, I feel like I totally lost my train of thought there. Let's keep forwarding though. I think I was talking about why they killed him. Anyways, this I'm gonna get into this part of the video. Why you should be scared. You know what I'm saying? It is scary. I got a little encouragement after, and we'll wrap up the video. I mean, there's lots more that could be said, but keep it a little bit humble for now. Maybe I don't think I'm gonna revisit the topic. I might take individual topics that I talked about in this video and make a whole video out of them. But this thing is scary free, bro, because of the reason I just mentioned, right? I think I just kind of regained my train of thought. I was talking about, people dropping in here, attacking us, and your homies that are supposed to be with you, that are supposed to be patriotic and defending your country, they're actually not for you. They're in here, but they're your enemy, and they'll kind of like take you out from behind while supporting secretly. They're on the other team. And so that is what we got going on here in the West. And that's what I was saying. I think I was saying that, like, you can see the divide and conquer thing, where you're trying to divide people, trying to separate up people from a nation, to weaken the nation, to as a part of a strategy. And I'm not saying that's what they did in the case of the Charlie Kirk thing. Maybe somewhere in the background on a higher level. If you guys didn't watch Satan Behind Kings, the video I got on that, watch that one. You'll see what I'm saying. There's a higher level. There's a playing field that's above this. This is chess. This is not checkers. You know what I'm saying? But you know, along that lines, you've got, you know, a dividing narrative going on here. But we should be scared in a sense. You know what I'm saying? Because this is what we've done, is we've allowed this stuff to slip so far now, and it's so far gone, that there are people who really have genuine convictions about these things. You know what I mean? There are really Muslims who are in the world out here, and this is the craziest thing I'm gonna say right now. I understand them. I get it. Because they actually are convicted about what they actually believe this stuff. They actually believe what the Quran says. They actually believe what these, like, some of these more these things that we wouldn't identify with, even in the simplicity of, like, the women covering and things like that, right? There's people who really are convicted about this. There's people who really feel like, Sharia law is the best law for Canadian society, and they're like, yeah, man, like, I'm a Muslim. And even the moderate, innocent Muslim auntie that will feed you and give you, like, and she'll do everything for you. At the end of the day, she really believes in this book and in this ideology, and she really actually, and when stuff hits the fan, you know what I mean, you can't fault them. Like, let me explain what I'm saying a little better. They said Trump is a Nazi. They said that Trump is going to be a dictator, and that, all this other stuff, right? Now, if you're a thinking person, that means you should kill him. You know what I'm saying? Like, that, you're a hero if you kill Trump in that case. Like, if you're following the reason. I'm sure this video is getting taken down at this point. If you guys watch this video, try to save it or something, because I don't know what I'm talking right now. Algorithm is going to be all over Daily Boy's case, but it makes sense if you're saying this man is Hitler, like, right? So think about, like, you as a person, like, with your moral values or whatever, and knowing what you know about Hitler, and think about if you were able to go back in time and you had the ability to pull the trigger and stop the 6 million, the genocide, like, regime of, and World War II or World War I, or which one am I tripping? Anyways, imagine you were able to stop this, right? There's a lot of people, like, I don't know, man, like, I'm thinking maybe Daily Boy might have pulled the trigger. And so if you actually believe the stuff that these people believe about these people, if you believe that Charlie Kirk is a dude that his actions, it has led to, babies dying in Palestine, and, like, what I mean, like, all this craziness. One of my friends posted something where she's like, who cares about this guy who's in hell right now, or something like that. Not my friends, but, like, somebody in our friend circle, And so this is how she talk about a man that just got papped out. You know what I'm saying? Like, we shouldn't even talk about it. Like, we shouldn't even care about it. We should care about some other issue, because this guy's, like, going to hell anyways or something. But that's their conviction, bro. Like, That's how they feel. They feel like this man was an evil man, and like, you know what I'm saying? And the problem is we got that whole world around us right now. We've got a lot of people around us that believe this way. They actually genuinely believe that these people are danger to our society, to our way of life, to our thing. And you know what I'm saying? It creates a situation which not now 99% of people are not gonna do what this kid went and did. You know what I mean? Allegedly. And but even at 1%, even at one point, that 0.1% of people that actually really have this conviction, that maybe is struggling with mental health issues at the time, that's maybe on a little bit of crack, tweaking a little bit on the time, like, you know what I'm saying? It creates a situation where it's dangerous. If you're a street preacher and you're going out to minister, you're probably gonna get beat up at some point right here locally in Canada. You know what I'm saying? You're probably going to face persecution right here in Canada. And you could potentially get papped out because somebody actually believes that what you're spreading is dangerous, or believe that, like, you know, let's say me as a person, I'm talking about Muhammad and I'm critiquing Islam and stuff like that. Let's say there's a radical Muslim that believes that, like, yo, what you're saying is like, you know, they're called like, I'm gonna ask Christians to just engage in this little thought experiment right now. Abraham was asked to go sacrifice his son on a hill. Abraham then like does it, and he doesn't do it because God had a whole plan of saving him, and it's all pointing to the Messiah, and you know, all this stuff, right? It's pretty incredible, wonderful, amazing stuff. But Abraham, the Bible says that this was counted as righteousness, as like faithfulness to him, because like this is something that he was asked to do and he did it. He was about to carry it out in faith. Now, imagine, I know you guys are gonna say, no, Dale, come on, man. Like, but imagine if you felt like Christ was calling you to do something, bruh. Like, there's some stuff with the Israelites and the Amalekites and the Midianites and all these ites in the Old Testament. Go read about them. You know what I'm saying? Imagine you feel like this is what Christ is calling you to do. You know what I'm saying? And imagine now you're already dealing with certain other issues in your life. And then on top of that, you feel, imagine you already have the temptation to like violate women or something like that, you know? And you're struggling with this thing. And then on top of that, you feel like now God is validating it and telling you that it's okay or to do it, or like, you know what I mean? These are kafir women, you know what I'm saying? Like, imagine that's the case, bro. You know what I mean? What would you do? And so this is the reality. Right now, that's the thing I'm encouraged, like I'm kind of like shook about. And I know is the reality is that there are people out here that really believes this stuff and has deep convictions about it. And I'm not even, like, I'm saying they're wrong, but I'm not even mad. Like, I can't, because I kind of understand that this is their conviction. They're lost. They actually believe this way. Now, what is the prevention? Is what Charlie Kirk was doing. Is what, you know, Turning Point USA was doing. Is what, you know what I'm saying, we're doing. Is like advocating for these other perspective and, you know, fighting in this world of like ideas, to push our ideas out there, to talk to young people, to have nuances discussion, and ultimately to flip the switch over, to stop incentivizing these behaviors, stop pushing these like ideas in the schools and in the systems and in the highest form of governments and all this type of stuff, and to start, you know, rolling back, you know, society to more traditional values and family structures, and, you know, Bible believing folks, making people like, you know, sort of stand on Christian principle, not making people, but you get what I'm saying, like, you know, sort of like, you know, proselytizing to people and allowing this prayers back in the school, allowing, you know what I mean, the opening back of freedom of speech for people who share conservative values, and, you know what I mean, for harsher punishments against, you know, people who practice, you know, sort of like violence against any other, like, you know, social or political ideas or whatever, right? So making sure that we protect freedom of speech and all this type of stuff, like these are ways that we can ultimately solve this. But in light of that grim fear and the little recommendation I shared, I want to share in my final sort of sentiment. I want to share the way this is backfiring. You know what I'm saying, bro? That man did not kill Charlie Kirk. You know what I'm saying? First of all, Charlie Kirk is Christian. He's alive. He's more alive than he's ever been. He's with Jesus. He's blessed. You know what I'm saying? Now, the idea of Charlie Kirk. Anytime you create a martyr out of someone for their opinion, all you do is further their opinion, bro. All you do is put it out there. Now, Charlie Kirk is more famous than he's ever been. His ideas are gonna become like more people are gonna be like, okay, what happened was, and then not only are you gonna further Charlie Kirk's agenda, you're gonna create more Charlie Kirks. You know what I'm saying? Because now there's people. Now I'm like, bruh, I want to share my opinions now. Like I'm unashamed now. You know what I'm saying? One of my hesitations with sharing my opinions, like I love Donald Trump. You know what I'm saying? Right now, I'm a Donald Trump supporter, and a lot of the stuff that people criticize him for, I can talk to you about that, and I could be like, no, look, fam, like tariffs, like Canada's always been tariffs, blah 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 blah, right? And we can get into it, right? But my hesitation is I actually don't really. So I actually liked Obama back in the days. Turns out I was wrong, and so like I'm always like, let me watch for a longer time because I don't know, bro. Like maybe Donald Trump turns out to be a horrible president. So far, I think a lot of the things that I'm seeing as a person who just has this vision from like what I'm seeing happening on social media and evaluating what I'm seeing happening and some of the movements that he's made, like on transgenderism and like on like all this other stuff. I'm like, yo, I'm liking it. It's common sense policies and stuff like that. Women in men and women's sports, and what I mean, helping to seal up the border and like various other things that he's been doing very well. You know what I mean? Stock markets are pretty crazy. Some of the best that they've ever been. You know what I mean? The economy seems to be sort of bouncing back, and like common sense opening back up. Like ultimately, certain production means within the U.S. rather than outsourcing them and things like that. It seems to be that he's leading the drug cartel thing, like what I'm saying. Now that's a sticky one because here it is that like he's protecting civilians who I've had friends that die from fentanyl overdose here, but like it's also kind of sticky because it's like anyways, there's many things as to why, but like a part of my boldness for coming out and saying that now is because of the Charlie Kirk thing. Cause now I'm like, yo, fam, now I'm like, bruh, you know what I'm saying? Like, y'all are like creating more Charlie Kirks. That's all I'm saying, right? So right now, it's backfiring in that way. It has that effect. It's elevating his work. It's creating more people that are like him. So it's not gonna work in the first place. But on the other side, it makes people less sympathetic to the groups that are performing these acts, to the sides that these acts are happening from. It makes them seem intolerant. It makes them seem not sensible. It makes them seem hypocritical and all the stuff they're claiming, fascism and totalitarianism and all this other stuff. They be looking like the totalitarians now. They'd be like, yo, you run with my ideas and you promote my ideas, or you know what I'm saying? You have to call me by my pronouns. You have to like, but they're the ones that seem kind of like crazy right now. It's doing this senseless act of violence. You know what I'm saying? In the manner that this dude did, it seems to undermine. I don't know. You guys tell me, you feel like this is helping the left's cause, or you guys feel like it's hurting? And I personally think that it's gonna hurt the left more than it's gonna help them. I think, and again, now it could come out tomorrow. They're gonna be like, oh, he was on the right. Actually, he was a Donald Trump like supporter. Actually, he donated to. I don't know, man. Either way, even if that something like that did happen, a lot of the points stand alone that's made in this video. You know what I'm saying? The fact is, there is this dichotomy. There is this violence coming from this particular side. I got 10 seconds. I'm gonna wrap up. Like, share, comment, you know what I mean? Do all that good stuff. God bless y'all. Let me get out of here. You done know.